Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk About It Tuesday. I'm Tosca DiMatteo, founder of Tosca Coaching and Consulting, and I'm super excited to have you here today when we talk about coming back to resilience with founder of HerCsuite, Natalie Benamou, who's joining me now. And before I bring her on, first, for those of you who are new to this platform, I do this to bring diverse perspectives, ideas, and experiences to the forefront for the purpose of being better leaders, for the purpose of self-development, and for healing. And it is not lost on me that it is the beginning of Black History Month, and my big philosophy is that I bring diverse perspectives year round, not just on the months that we celebrate these differences, like Women's Month and all these things, Hispanic heritage. So, but I do just want to acknowledge and call that out, and say that I bring all different perspectives here. And I'm excited to have Natalie join. So let me bring her on right now. We could get it going. There we are. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good afternoon, and please correct me if I'm saying your last name. Is it Benamo? Am I saying it right?
Benamou.
Benamou,
Yes,
Benamou. Okay, thank
yes,
you for
yes.
correcting me. And thank you so much for taking the time to be
I'm
on
so
this
glad to be
platform
with
with me.
you. I'm so glad to be with you. I'm trying to figure this out. This is my first live, so
I love
please
it. I
forgive
love when
me.
I have virgins. I love when I have virgins on the show. It's great. Yeah, I love this platform. It's just fun. It feels like easy and yeah. First of all, I just want to say that I so appreciate you coming on. You are just one of those humans that, like, your generosity and your kindness and your givingness and your passion are just so front and center and forward, and you have clearly been a huge support, and I'm just glad to be able to, like, return the favor here and hopefully introduce you to some new audiences that want to be a part of what you're doing. So I'm just thrilled to have you on.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here with you, and I'm so honored to have this chance to have a conversation. Every time I have a conversation with you, Tosca, I always pick something up that I didn't know before. So I can't wait for this
Well,
conversation.
likewise.
And speaking of generous hearts, for those of you that are watching, one of the most generous people I know is you. So I'm so honored to be here with you today. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. And I do this thing where, like, I just feel like I can never do somebody's intro justice. So I like to hand it over for you to share what you feel called to, in terms of, like, what makes you who you are. Like, what are some of those aspects of your journey that kind of shaped you, and just to give people a sense of of who you are, and kind of where you come from. So I'll just kind of leave that open-ended question for you.
Well, thank you so much. I think we all go on an arc, right, of our journey and things that take us in one
Mm.
direction. We never know. And I always say, when doors close, windows open. It's up to us to fly through. And I've flown through a few times in my career. But I'm first and foremost, I'm a fierce mom of two girls. So that is really near and dear to my heart. And I also am a co founder of an animal rescue. So there's some personal sides to me that people don't always realize, because I always am very business focused a lot of times. But I think on this platform, it's a little more about the person. So I'm sharing a little bit about that. But I was in my career for 29 years in trade shows and didn't expect to make a big change, as most of us didn't, right? 2 years into this, we didn't know what we were going to see and feel. So after 29 years of huge leadership development and having been in a leadership role, I was president of HBA Chicago, the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association, in 2014. And that was really the spark that I didn't realize would pay forward when I had the opportunity to really reflect on what I wanted as a legacy for myself and for my girls. And to me, lifting women up is my heart. It's my passion and purpose coming together. So I decided, after 29 years of being in the trade show industry, to take a leap of faith, fly through the windows. And I founded HerPower2, which is the company, and we created her CSuite to really help women at every phase of their careers. And I just think that we have to do things differently. So I'm so glad to have this conversation today because you do things differently and we share that passion together.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think there's a lot of, I think where we just want to dive in really quick, and then I think I want to go back. But what's coming up for me, right, is when you share like really your passion around helping other women and lifting them up. And frankly, right, there's a lot of people that feel that way right now, right, that just have gone through so much of their life just feeling like unsupported and want to, and all of that. And there are some people out there, I think, right, that hold themselves back, that say, hey, there's already all these other things out there that do this. Why me? Why should I step in this space? And so my very first question, and thank you, we got Rain Hudson joining here. And she built her own, fitness
That's
business
awesome. I
too,
can't wait to
right?
get to know you. Hello.
And so I just imagine like these are some of the thoughts like why should I do this? This is already out there, da da da. And so I just love like if that was part of if that was part of your journey at all and how you decided to like step into it.
It's a great question. So I started by listening. When April 2020, I started talking to friends and I said, how are you? 100% of them said, I feel alone, siloed, don't know who I can turn to. And that weighed heavily on my heart. And I thought, well, I got to do something about this. And so at the time, I did a lot of research. I took a lot of online courses and educated myself, but I really wasn't, I wouldn't say fearful of the competition, but I wasn't focused as much on the competition as I wanted to be serving first. And I knew if I could find a way to make a difference, that would differentiate. And so we started out in the masterminds, which I'm so glad you're part of now. But just meeting. And at the time, we were meeting every week because that's how crazy things were. We were all just, what are we going to do? Then it was twice a month. And then as things got a little better, we went to once a month. But it was really around listening first and what do women need? And it was overwhelming feeling of silo. And so I thought, well, I think I can do it a little bit differently. There are organizations, like you said, I checked into one of the very big high end, one that I won't mention, but there is one that's a high end organization. And what I really wanted was inclusivity. I wanted everyone to feel welcomed, everyone to feel valued, and no one to feel like they didn't matter because you do. And so those were the kind of the cornerstones that I think started the differentiation is listening first, and then with the heart of making a difference in whatever that looks like for each individual, because everybody's different.
Oh my gosh, I thank you for sharing that. And I just love too that I just get this strong sense of you believing in yourself and like knowing that leading with your heart and being aware of what the need is, like that it's going to happen. I don't know. Is that like, did you feel that way? Like, did you feel like confident going into this?
Well, I will say that I have moments every day where I'm like, I must be crazy up in here. But mostly, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I think it was time for me to really just let it full force take hold. And so, would I say that I wouldn't say that I'm fearless, but I tend to be pretty fearless. I'm not afraid to ask. I think that's why I was successful in business development and growing businesses, well over into the $110 million. That was because I'm not afraid to ask, but I also have to take time to listen and understand what it is that people need. And that's kind of unique. I think a lot of people want to tell you what you need. I want to hear what you need. And then I want to solve it for you, like help you as a partner together to make change happen, together to make an impact. And you do that too. You do that with your cultural revolution. You're together, right? Together making change happen. And it's not alone, but you have to listen first, I think.
Yeah, it's like not prescriptive. And this
Correct.
makes me think of like, in our pre-call, right, in terms of service kind of being embedded for you. Like, so
Hmm.
I'd love to hear about yeah, like growing up and how service was part of your life even at a young age.
Uh, Thank you for asking that. So I grew up in a kind of an unusual circumstance. My uncle was the founder of NPR, and I grew up listening to NPR, listening to these stories,
Mm.
and hearing what other people were sharing from the very first episode back in. I know this is going to shock everyone that I was around in 1970, but I was very little listening. But I discovered recently that it actually, the serving first goes back to my grandmother, who in the 30s made a hot lunch program for children that weren't getting lunch, because of course in the 30s it was a depression. And she was solving, even though they didn't have much, trying to make sure the children that were coming to the one room schoolhouse had food. And I think that paid forward with my mom, with my uncle, and just always having that serving first ingrained in me as being grateful and how can you help others. I just grew up in that, and maybe that's why it's something that I always try to lead with is how can I help you? What does success look like for you? Is always my first question.
Mm, yes, thank you for sharing that. And it makes me wonder because a lot of people, and especially like women who have this like service first and caretaker and all of that, like has it been a struggle for you in your journey to also fill your cup to also take care of yourself? Like have you been able to do work of service but in a healthy way?
Well, as an entrepreneur, I would say probably not. I tend to put the oxygen mask on everyone around me first, and then I'm like, "Hey, I can't breathe!" Woo! So so it's something. It's a work in progress,
Mm,
But I think just trying. Also, it's a very good point because I think when women Shonda Rhimes, I think, is someone that, in honor of what you were saying at the beginning, and I love her
mm,
so much. She had this year of saying no,
mm.
and here's one of the most successful women on the planet. Producer, writer, and
Oh, her year
director.
of yes. Her year of
Yes, her
yes,
year.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. 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 Yeah. Right. Yes. No, I got it wrong. But I'm thinking about like how she was trying to be present and making a focus of that for her children. It was really a struggle for her.
Mm,
And I think that's where I think it can be hard is finding the pockets of knowing where to allocate your time. There's only 24 hours in a day. So you got to sleep. You really do.
right.
And aside from that, then how are you spending your time? And what do you say yes and no to? So sorry, yes, you're right. I got it all twisted up there, but
No, but I
I know I
think she
have to.
also, I believe she also talks about, right, like what she says no to means she's saying yes
Right.
to something
Yes,
else.
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing
Uh,
that's hard, I think, for women to
mhm,
balance. I mean, do you find that? Like it's hard because you want to say yes. I want to help others, but
mm.
sometimes I do have to say, well, how can I make the biggest impact? And sometimes that's not always saying yes, right? Sometimes you have to say no to get to yes.
Oh, yes. And Rain is like, yeah, learning that. Me too, it's constant, but I think over the past several years, my work was definitely around boundaries. And
Mm,
not always having a good model for what healthy boundaries look like. So I had to like really learn because I would overgive and then, once that turns into resentment, like there's a problem, and just
yes,
never
for
wanting
sure.
to be in that place. And whether
Hmm.
that's, overgiving to clients or overgiving to like, friends and family or whatever, but like I do think it's like it's a constant assessment of is saying yes to this serving me? Is it serving those that I'm actually here to serve as well, right? And the
Hmm.
greater need. So yeah, I think that so that's like a topic in and of itself.
Yes, yes, it
Um,
is for sure.
yeah, but I think, when we talk about like, the organization that you run, which is really about women supporting women, like that's that's a theme at nauseum, I think, that comes up, which is um, I think linked to, you can tell me how you feel about this, but I think so much of how we operate is linked to the patriarchy. It's linked to these bigger systemic issues around like we're not enough, and we have to give and give, and it's, and that more is more. But that's like a huge conditioning and I think unlearning that needs to
So
happen,
true.
even as
I think,
entrepreneurs.
years ago, and this was probably one, I mean, in my career, I was really fortunate to be successful, but my daughter gave me a Morse code bracelet with beads that said, I am enough, in Morse code in
Mm,
beads. And, it made me think like, wow, do I feel that? And I think all women at some point, you could be the most successful woman on the planet, Oprah. There's probably been a moment or two, even for Oprah, where she's like, questioning. I think we have to give ourselves grace. And I'm trying to work on that,
mm,
like trying to work on the
mm,
grace part of it. Like I'm a very driven type A person and I have these lists and these goals and this is what I'm going to do, and I get to the end of the day
mm.
and I'm like, what? I didn't even get halfway through that first thing. And so why is that? And I'm really to be like, you know what? Because that's what was supposed to happen and it's okay. And it's not perfect, but it's okay. And I think I'm enough and
Mm.
perfection, those two things go together, right? I mean, I'm sure you find that sometimes in people you talk with is that perfection and enough, it is really hard.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I know Raina's like, yeah, I need that bracelet too. Shit, are you kidding me? Like, I need affirmations like posted
I don't want to have
everywhere.
it on, but if I would have it on, but I wore it so much that I wore it out. But
Yeah, and
if
I
that's
think
even
there's also,
possible.
and there's different parts of our, the population that where it's even right. It's whammy on top of whammy in terms of messages of not enoughness and you can't be who
Ah,
you are, and like it just gets exponentially more challenging. I think when you have even less privilege in some of these areas, so
mm,
um, and I am curious, because when you decided to leave your career of 29 years in trade, right? Like, in a way, I feel like part of that is you saying, like, I'm enough and I can start my own thing and I can leave this thing in the dependency on a paycheck. And so I would just love to hear more about that transition from, and especially during the pandemic, right, when there was so much uncertainty and you were like, you know what, F it, I'm doing it. I'm enough. I'm going to build this company. So what I would love to hear about what that journey was. And we've got, I love Susanna joined. She also left corporate to
Yay!
start her own beautiful business doing branding and consulting. And
Oh, I
she's
love it.
even younger than both of us doing it, which is just like, I love seeing that.
That's great.
Um, yeah, owning your superpower. So, yeah, like what was that journey like for you? Some of this is also normalizing it. That's why I asked, because
Yes.
people feel like they're the only
Yes.
one that like feel that way.
No. So here's a little unknown secret that I'll share with the world today. This is a little secret. So the trade show industry stopped, like breaks stopped. We were doing, my division was doing like 1,000 shows. We were in the midst, things were in process, they were being shipped, things were on the docks, we had stuff being set up, and all of a sudden, done. Everything in March 2019, 2020 was everything ended. Okay, how long is this going to last? We don't know. Eventually, we got put on partial unemployment, which I've
Mm,
never experienced. It was a new thing, and I was working 50 hours a week, not making minimum wage. And that was the bottom for me. That was
mm,
the point where I was like, well, is this really what it's about? And I mean, my husband and I, we had to make a lot of tough financial decisions. I was doing crazy stuff along with my colleagues. We were selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Seriously. Like it was,
wow.
things were like very humbling of an experience when you go
Mm,
from being very successful to like this moment, right? And I thought, and that's why I was like, well, how bad can it be if I do this thing on my own, right? I mean, it certainly can't be less than what less than where I'm at now. And so that kind of gave me the confidence to really think,
mm,
now I need to do my purpose. I'm of a certain age. And I need to do what I'm meant to do, which is to lift women up. And I can't do that if I'm always afraid I'm successful, I'm successful, I'm successful. Sometimes that can be a double-edged sword. And when you have so much success, it's hard to leave. So I got my MBA when I was 31, I think. So when my daughter was born, the day before she was born. And yeah, crazy. And so I thought, like, well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And then success happened, and it kept happening and happening for another 23 years. And so sometimes you have to have something really big happen to make you assess where the next things are. And so that gives you strength. That gives you the fear. The fear is not as bad as what happens if you don't do it. That was the fear. That was the fear for me. And it was hard. It was hard to leave my customers and my clients. I loved my clients. I liked, I love my team. Some of them I had worked with on and off for almost that entire career. So that was really tough. But I had to go back to who I was as a person and what I want to do. And that's where you get the strength, I think.
And was there a lot of confusion during that time for you? Like, did it feel muddy? Like, did it feel like foggy and muddy, or was it like, you know, just a lot of emotions around knowing like that it was time for you to make this change?
I don't feel like I was muddy on what I wanted to do. It was being really creative. I had a few ideas before where I landed. And some of the very wonderful women in our organization helped me to kind of evolve, including Megan, who's been with me since the beginning, Megan Draper, who's our creative director. So we've gone through like 20 iterations of ideas. But I think, just trying to kind of figure it out. And I didn't feel confused. I just felt like, okay, what is it going to be? Let's talk to people, talk to people, listen. And that's how it kind of happened. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, no, totally. That's super helpful. And so, yeah, like talk to me more about like this vision and like what you were hearing about like that women needed and the kind of space that you wanted to create for them and even your experience in, I mean, trade shows are super male dominated, are they not? Like,
they used to be
yeah,
really
okay.
strong. I think it have evolved. Now
Okay.
most of the trade show industry, it's a lot of women,
Okay,
So
okay.
it's definitely more balanced.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
For sure, from when I started, that was a very different experience.
What was the vision that you had in terms of what you wanted to create?
Originally, because I was in this weird space of partial unemployment, trying to figure things out, I was like, what if we just do an exchange? And this might resonate with some of the women that are, Susanna who's watching, and Rain. Maybe this will resonate with you. So originally, it was Her Networks was the name of the company, and it was going to be like we would exchange. You would coach me, and I would give you some marketing, or you kind of like do services for each other to help because it was expensive to start a company. And so I was like, well, what can we do in this crazy economic time? Because it was a really tough time, 2020. I mean, now things are much better, but in 2020, a lot of people were figuring stuff out. And so I was like, well, maybe we just do this exchange and it's going to be great. And, of course, serving first, right? So I was like, well, how can I help you? I'll help you do this. And it just wasn't a business model that was sustainable, but I think I still have that spirit, if you will, to try to make things work for women. And so that's kind of how it evolves to where we are right now. But yeah, I think being creative and thinking how can we make things different, I think is at the heart of it.
Hmm.
And
And
helping entrepreneurs, right? Helping women start their own thing.
yeah. Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, being of service was just like this value that was kind of
I
where
just
it's,
can't escape it.
you can't escape being of
Yeah,
service. Yes, like this is a core value of yours. I love it.
really cool.
Well, and so I want to circle back to, and I love how a good friend of mine, Lena, joined. And hello, Jima or Gima. I'm not saying it, know if I'm saying it right, but actually, Lena came on and talked about resilience
I love it.
over a year ago on this platform. And so, right, we were talking about like coming back to resilience. So, we've heard a little bit of your journey and like some of the ups and downs. So like, why is that a message also that you want to carry forward to people around these valleys and these peaks and how we have to keep coming back to resilience? What has been your journey about why that's so close to your heart?
I think because I was in business development my entire career, there's definitely ebbs and flows, right? You gear up for a big presentation and then you win it or you don't. There's nothing like the high of winning a big deal for me. I mean, it was just hands down awesome. But then there are those moments where you can't, unfortunately, you don't win everything. It's not that you
Mm,
can't, it just doesn't always happen. And so when those moments
mm,
happen, I try to allow myself to absorb what I'm feeling, take time
mm,
and be respectful of those feelings. And
mm,
then I have a time limit and then I move on because it's
mm,
really easy to dwell in that place. And I can't dwell in that place because it's not helping me to serve myself
mm,
and people around me, whether it's my girls or, whoever. So, people that I'm friends with. So I do allow that moment though. I mean, there might be, I might just not talk to anyone. I go in the cone of silence or whatever and just feel. But then I think we have to bounce back because it's serving
mm,
ourselves when we do that. You're serving the
mm,
other side if you allow it to bring you down. And everything that's been happening in the last 2 years has been so hard on women and devastating and loss and change and
mm,
the weight of the world. So I am not making that light of that in the
mm.
least at all. I think whatever that journey is, you're going through that. But after you allow yourself the time to go through it, then allow yourself to lift up too, because you deserve it.
Mm.
That's my thought.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Like this, it's interesting, right? Because you're like putting kind of a time limit. So like you may not be ready to come back from those feelings. So like what do you do? Like what are the tools that you use to like to say, all right, I'm gonna push this aside and like move it forward now, you know? Because I think
So
it can be easy to like ruminate in a
it
thing,
is
and sometimes
so
we need to
easy.
process it through and push through a
Yes,
discomfort of it.
yes.
So like how do you know you're not getting out of it before you've pushed through that discomfort that's necessary to transform it?
I think the one of a boss that I had years ago had this saying, "Success is your best revenge," and that doesn't
Mm,
always apply. And that word revenge is the wrong word, but when I guess I just go at it harder when I like,
mm.
it's like if I would lose a big deal, I'd be like, well, I'm going to get something twice as big, watch me. So
Yeah,
that's how
I love it. Watch me work.
I know.
Yes.
I got my leather on today, my hot pink for you. But
Yes.
I think that you owe it to yourself to be like, you know what? That happened, but I'm going to do it and it's going to happen twice as good. Whatever that is, and you may not even know what that is
Mm.
going to be. So I mean, have you had something like that happen where you've been in corporate and then you got out of corporate. Were you in that that resilience time frame where you're like, okay, this moment I'm allowing myself, but then you've gone through some of that too, right?
I love that you're bouncing this question back at me. I see you, Natalie. I see what's going on here. You know what? And listen, I think I lived a lot of the first part of my life in that F you revenge, like I'm
Mm.
gonna, like that was a big motivator, right, for me to be like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. You're not gonna give me that job. I'm about to get something better.
Yes.
And I
Yeah,
think
it can't be
part
the
of,
only thing, right? It can't be the
yeah,
only
yeah,
thing.
no, but I think part of it is there's some like positive force with that, reminding you who you are and reminding you that you're a fighter and that you will not sink to the lowest expectation of you, but you will rise. But I think I've had to kind of undo that conditioning myself to say like that I'm going to prove it to me, right? This isn't about anybody else. This is
Yes,
about,
true.
right? Like, so I think that it's learning a different come from place. And Yeah, I think that I can get stuck in some of these, you know, if I'll just be really honest, like I was super excited. Like my husband got like quoted in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, right? And like and
That's
that's
great.
a win.
Congratulations. That's a
Thank you.
huge win.
That's a huge win for him, his business. It's a huge win for us, right? Like, and also I had feelings about it, about whatever I was doing, comparing like his business and mine, which is baloney crap. But I also know that I had to like kind of allow those feelings, but not let them consume me and drag me down a rabbit hole for the whole freaking week. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had to like come back to like my mantras and my like I am co-creating a successful business and like reminding myself of what I'm doing, which has nothing to do with what he's doing. So yeah, it's like it's a practice and it definitely comes up a lot to work through.
Well, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about grace, right? So,
Yeah.
and I have had to adjust because I don't realize my limitations at my age. And I still think of myself as like, I'm 30. What are you talking about? And so, um, and so I think I've had to kind of feel like, okay, well, that is kind of like that's where I'm like so driven and all
Mm,
this. But then you have to like take a pause and be like, okay, that's great. But like, what is actually doable in this
mm,
circumstance? And be
mm,
okay with that. And so, like in your situation, like what is actually doable with
mm.
wherever it is in your journey, and be great and happy with that, and not be like, oh, so it's definitely it's a journey and a twist and turns, right?
Well, and I think too, like there's this concept around like this middle way, right? Because you can have these highs and your lows, but how can you always find your joy regardless of the external, which I am like working through. Like I just literally bought a book around joy written by like Desmond Tutu and like the Dalai Lama because I'm like I'm trying to figure this out. Like how do I find my joy regardless of outcomes and results, which is again how
Mm-hmm.
whether
We're
you're in
conditioned.
corporate or we're conditioned to like look
Mm-hmm.
at those external things as the validation of the win. So like I'm curious, like even as you're building this, community of women with her C-suite, like how do you measure success of building this business? Like is it membership or like are you able to find something else that's more reliant on you versus the external for what brings you joy every day?
Well, for me, when I hear that someone was successful as a result of being in our community, that brings me super joy on steroids. So when I see someone, if they get a new role, they did something different, I love that, because then I know that the community is lifting that person up, and that's what we're here for.
Mm,
But I want to go back to what you were saying earlier about I the joy thing is
mm,
a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure to feel like you have to be happy, you have to be joyful, and
mm,
I try to look at moments versus like this long time, right? A moment of joy. Maybe it's laughing at a video about cats with my daughter, or like whatever that is. That's a moment of joy, and I'm glad for that. It doesn't mean that I have
mm.
to feel joyful like 24/7. I think that's an unrealistic, for me, that's an unrealistic expectation, because there's going
Yep.
to be highs and lows. So I try to focus on the moment
Mm,
as opposed to like
mm.
this length of time, because that is super hard. And boy, the Dalai doesn't come higher than the Dalai Lama, right? Like he's figured it out. But like, but for regular people,
Yeah,
it's the
no, and I
highs and the
totally agree
lows.
with you. There's like a difference between like toxic positivity and this expectation that we're just like always feeling this way, which is what the issue is with Instagram and social media, because then it's just this fake reality. And then, but you're right. But I think it is, and I do believe coming back to the present moment. And I have a good friend of mine who reminds me to ask, like, what else could you possibly need in this current moment to make it better? And usually the answer is like nothing, right? Usually it's actually a beautiful moment in and of itself. Um,
Unless
but
you need a little
also,
glass of wine. I'm just going to put that out
well,
there.
that's why you and me are friends, because that is
You
exactly
might need some wine.
okay. All right. I don't know about this dry January crap. I never subscribe to that shit. Okay.
No.
We only have
Boy,
one life to live,
I think I
and there's
missed
too
that
much
boat.
wine.
That was not on my horizon. So thankfully, I would have failed. I failed.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like more, I'm just not about that like forced limitation. But um,
I know.
I want to go back to like, a phrase that's come up quite a bit, right, in our conversation, which is like, is this value or passion you have to help people like see things differently or do things differently. And so I'm curious where that comes from for you, like this questioning of the status quo or however you look at this, view things differently, like what is underneath that?
Well, there's a number that stood in my head, which was like the transformation number, and that was 217 years. And that is how long it's going to take for women to reach gender parity if we do nothing.
Mm.
And here's the thing that I was really frustrated with a year ago, and I hope people are just as frustrated when they hear this, is that let's celebrate there were 38 women as CEOs in the Fortune 500. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, there's 3 more. And oh, by the way, there's 3 women of color now. Really? Like,
Right.
that's not a celebration. That's not a celebration.
Yeah.
So for me, I just feel like if you keep doing things the same way, it's the definition of insanity. And that fuels me to be disruptive, think about difference. How can we change how we're doing things? And so I'm constantly looking for things and solutions to make it so that we do not wait that's ridiculous. It's just not even so 217, that number is one that I just want to go like this too.
Yeah,
We're not going
yeah.
to wait 217 years, right? I mean, I hope the women that are, watching this, whether live or later, I hope that number resonates. Same with the number of CEOs. Like, that's why her C-suite is that you are the result of the 5 people you surround yourself with, and you are in control of your destiny. So surround yourself with your own C-suite. Make your own C-suite happen. That's the name. That is why. It doesn't mean that it's all women and CEOs, but you're the result. And so that fuels me. Like, surround yourself with people that make change happen. If that's what you want. Maybe not everybody wants that. That's okay. But that's what fuels
No,
me.
I love that. I love that you bring that to the forefront. I feel like, girl, we need to have a separate conversation around marketing because, because that's just really powerful, right? And it's really powerful to say like that. And it's there's this other phrase. Actually, I can't take ownership of it. It's this woman who has her own like um, apparel brand called Yes I Am. I'm going to actually interview her in March. I'm super excited.
I can't wait
Michelle.
to hear about that.
Yeah, and she's here based in Brooklyn here, and like. She's like there's this like jacket, I totally want to buy it, and it's like, forget the seat, I'm making my own table. And that's kind of what you're saying here, right? Like, create
Yes.
your own table and be the leader that you want to be, and whatever that looks like for you, and in terms of what you want to achieve.
And redefine what I think. The thing is, I had someone say to me that was actually in a position of, a C-suite position of an organization. And she said to me really profoundly, she said, what if men just don't want us there? Like, what if that is a true thing? And so if that's the case, then we have to do it for ourselves. I love the, make the seat for yourself. It's not easy. I mean, people think like, oh, it's so easy. No, it's not easy, but it is easier when you're together with people that will lift you up. That is
Yeah.
yes.
Well, look, and the truth is, the people in power don't want other people to be in power, right?
No,
Because of this like power over and belief that power can't be shared, and like all of those shenanigans, which are not true, but we're led to believe is true.
Yes, but there's plenty of really good organizations. There's many good organizations. I mean, I was just talking with one yesterday, and they were like, yeah, we're 50-50 women. I said, that's phenomenal. 50-50 women in leadership and men. That is our goal, right? So there's a lot of greatness in the world. I don't want people to mistake that. It's just, I think we need to move more towards that.
We hear you. I mean,
more towards that, right?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is like, that we have to be careful about what we're being told to celebrate because it's not enough because of how
Yes,
far off that we
that's
are.
right. Yes,
You know,
exactly.
and
Yes.
because again, it's like, oh, just be happy with the, oh, you have the
Yeah.
little, no, I don't want the cookie. I want the whole freaking cake, and I want a three-tiered cake, and I want roses and shit on that, and
and
like
and
gold
champagne,
and
champagne too.
champagne. I love it. See, now you and me can hang. All right, when you come to New York, all right, like we gotta
As
do
soon as
this.
I will be coming to New York eventually for sure.
Yes, yes. So, and I do look. I think. I don't know if you want to go here with it because I know you've had some, difficult experiences in terms of um, being listened to. We've talked a lot about like that you started this business like with listening, and I know there's been some experiences lately around like that not happening for you. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I just want to open it up in case that's something you feel passionate about in this moment, just around questioning status quo and things of that
Mm.
nature.
Well, I I would ask every woman listening, every woman who watches this later, have you ever had a situation where doctors don't listen to you? 100%. I've never met even female doctors, female nurses. I've never met a female who says 100% doctors always listen to me. So, what you were referring to, I think, is where we're going to head, which is I'm going to be creating a foundation for around that, around women's health, to help healthcare listen to women. And yes, there was a devastating situation with my daughter, and relentless for forget it. I wasn't going to accept not being listened to. And now she's on the path to wellness, but it was a very hard year. So I think listening and having people hear you are two different things. And we are in charge of our own destiny, and persistence pays off.
Mm.
That's what I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah, and it's like I think what comes up for me when you share that is that we have to demand difference, right? And be our own advocate when we're not being heard, whether that's in the healthcare environment, whether that's in our careers, whether that's, with potential clients, but if, whatever the situation is, but we deserve to actually be heard and listened to and call it out when somebody's ghosting or gaslighting or whatever's happening, that's just so toxic right now and
Mm-hmm.
also so accepted, which is
Yeah.
not okay.
I mean, I think I hear every day these crazy stories about, oh, people getting sent home and they were not well, or people, devastating. I mean, when I started, but you asked me about my journey, and actually, that was where I was. I was going to do this company before any of this,
Mm,
before COVID. I was working on a health equity, idea, and it's really around getting women to be listened to in the healthcare space
mm.
because of the devastating things that happen, life things, like life and death things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that those issues are just so much more exacerbated when you talk about people of
Mm,
color and
yes.
the intentionally ignored communities and communities that have been guinea pigs to governments and large organizations, and we wonder why there's resistance to the situation we have right now. Well, duh, you're training people how to
Not
treat
to be
you.
listened.
Like, what do you
Yeah.
think? Yeah, like, what do you think?
Mm,
Yeah, I'm gonna be skeptical, of course.
mm.
But yeah, that's such a beautiful mission, and like what are you needing for that? Like, what kind of support do you need to like start that
Oh, I
foundation? Like,
know. Well, I need my company to. I need her power to and her C-suite to succeed, so that I have some space
yes.
around being able to create it, because I will do it. I mean, I'm on a mission. I really want to do it, but I have to also be, you know, mindful, like you said. What do you say yes to? What do you say no to? So
Mm-hmm.
once we take off and things are well, I'm absolutely going to do it because I think it's so needed.
Awesome. All right. Well, hopefully some people that are listening now,
Yeah,
will raise their hand when it is time.
that's right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, what I'd love to ask, like, for those who are interested to hear more about like her C-suite, like how can people become a member? Who is it for? Like, and like, how does that whole thing work? I'd love for people to hear more about how they can get supported in the organization that you have created.
Well, thank you so much. I think that first and foremost, her C-suite is for professional women, and it's for every phase of the career. But in general, it's for people that are either they're solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, women leaders, or emerging talent. So those are kind of the four areas that we serve. And it's for women that need an outside perspective, right? People that want someone that they can bounce ideas off of. And they have easy 1 hour a month, no stress. Like, it's not about stress. It's not about like time commitment. Oh my gosh, it's about making the most out of your time and getting what you need out of it. So we really pair people up. We really try to do that on an individual basis. Companies, we're trying to help them retain and engage their female talent. That's really the focus of our organization now, is to and make women feel valued in those organizations. That, to me, would be amazing to be able to make that on a larger scale, because then we lift one woman up, we lift us all. So
Yes, I love it. So, right, so organizations who want to retain and also individuals who are looking
outside
for
perspective.
awesome talent. Yeah, outside
Mhm.
perspective. Yeah, and I'm, a proud member, and I definitely see the kind of caliber of folks that you bring in there, and just respectful group, and yeah, I'm excited to meet even more of the members. It's like um it's just a process to just kind of attend the things that you put together, the conversations, the circles, the networking. And so I think the content is also a big part of like how you add value.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. And you were on my podcast. That's another way that we try to,
oh my
you
gosh,
know,
yes.
we try to offer events. And you were also a speaker at one of our events, which was about the Great Resignation. So that was kind of the pivotal point for us to really think about, okay, well, we need to help companies in this moment. How can we be different? So that is a big differentiator for us. We're
Mm,
focused on talent development, but not in the way that other like coaching businesses and things like that, like what you do. This is more around community
hmm.
helping each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious, like, when you were in corporate, did you have that kind of support? Like, did you seek that? Um, or did you have it internally? Like, or did you think it was like a big gap in your experience?
Well, I think in the trade show industry, it's a big gap. People don't
Mm,
have mentors, they don't have sponsors. It's a giant gap, and it's a very big gap for women that aren't in sales in the trade show
mm,
industry. So across, whether you're on marketing side or whatever, but I will say that I've been really fortunate to have amazing advisors and mentors in my along the way, and that is what kind of
mm,
inspired me to create a mentoring and advisory platform for women, because I think that really helps us. The one thing I will say that people need not to forget about if you work at a company is you need a sponsor. You
mm.
need someone who's going to talk behind closed doors and put your name on the table, because people make assumptions all the time about what you want to do and they have no
Mm,
idea. And you need that person to be like, well, ask her. Don't
right.
say she doesn't want it. Ask her.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
definitely something people need to think about. We don't have the sponsorship, obviously, because we're not the
Right
company
inside.
side. We do the
Yeah.
mentoring, but people need to remember that. It's a really important thing.
No, that's a great tip. Yeah, absolutely. You gotta have your sponsors and be active and not wait for them to come
Yes,
to you, but to like actually go seek
mm,
them out and say like, hey,
yes.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so, as we're coming to the top of the hour here, I guess I just want to circle back. We've covered a lot of different ground, and so I'm
Mhm.
curious if there's anything you feel like we've left on the table in terms of coming back to resilience, like what you want people to know about these things that are, that you care so deeply about. Like, have we
Oh,
have
you're
we
so
missed anything?
kind. I think we've covered so much more than I expected, which was wonderful. I always like that. I'd like to say that if anyone has questions, I'm on Instagram. I have corporate pages. I don't have a personal page, so HerCsuite, you can message me, or on LinkedIn. I'm very big on LinkedIn in terms of being active. Not big like big, but like active. But I think at the end of the day, be kind to yourself. That's the one thing I think we don't do enough of, is to be kind to ourselves. You know, we're kind to everyone around you, and you are one of the kindest, most generous hearted people I'm so glad to know. But we have to be kind to ourselves too. So that's part of resilience, is allowing ourselves, you know, whatever that looks like, but be kind. And if you're grateful for everyone around you, be grateful for you and being here on this planet, because there's no one else like you.
I love that. And, I was going to say this earlier too, which is, you were talking earlier about giving ourselves grace. And actually next week, I have Christy Wallace coming on from the CEO of Elevate, also a women's network. And one of the things that she was passionate about talking about was grace. And so there's definitely a theme of how can we be kinder to ourselves? How can we be our own best friends? How can we give ourselves grace and perhaps be very careful about how much expectation and burden we're putting on ourselves that is just unnecessary and actually causing us to like seep the joy
Right?
from our pores.
Absolutely. That's true. We need to, balance the joy.
Yes. I love it. Well, and look, what a great sentiment to kind of end on, because like this is a new moon. It's a new year according to the Chinese lunar.
Yes.
So we can set new intentions. It's a great day. Happy New Year. It's a great day to really just do that assessment and say, hey, like, what is it I need to like do differently, right, in order to find more fulfillment and more joy in my life. So great thoughts, as hopefully people will do some journaling today to kind of set the month off on the right trajectory.
I love it. It sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful to you for being a speaker, a mentor, an advisor. You know, I take what you give me just as much as the reciprocal. So I'm so grateful for all that you do for women and for those around you. I know everybody appreciates you shining your light out on the world. So thank you for doing that.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. And for those, again, joining now and after the fact, please check out her C-Suite. See if that's a good fit for you for getting community support with other badass women, surrounding yourself with great people and outside perspective. You can also visit her Spotlight series on my blog to learn a little bit more. But yeah, and check her out on LinkedIn, follow her. Natalie, you're like a podcast host, you're a CEO, like you're just like doing all the things, such an inspiration to so many. So I look forward to continuing to be a part of your orbit and seeing what develops in what you're building.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I'm so honored to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I guess it's ciao for now, and we'll see you next time on Talk About It Tuesday. All right.
Awesome. Ciao.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.